Number 10. Over-apologizing for small mistakes. Some people apologize the way others breathe, constantly, unconsciously, and long before anyone even feels wronged. A tiny pause in conversation, a slight noise, a harmless delay in replying, and suddenly a quiet sorry slips out, almost like a reflex they can't control. But this habit is rarely about politeness. It's about survival, because people who over-apologize learned early that mistakes are dangerous, and being human comes at a cost. For them, apologies became a shield long before adulthood arrived. Maybe they grew up in a home where emotions exploded without warning. Maybe they had caregivers whose moods shifted like storms, where a small error triggered blame, shame, or withdrawal. Over time, they began to shrink themselves, softening their voice, minimizing their needs, staying small to avoid triggering disappointment. Sorry became a way to avoid conflict, to keep people close, to earn safety in an environment that didn't offer it freely. And now, even as adults, that old fear still whispers, don't take up too much space, don't upset anyone, don't give them a reason to pull away. Their apologies aren't for the action, they're for their existence, for every imagined inconvenience their presence might create. The heartbreaking truth is that chronic apologizers rarely even notice they're doing it. It's muscle memory from years of emotional hypervigilance. But beneath every unnecessary sorry is a quiet plea. Please don't be angry. Please don't leave. Please let me be enough. Number 9. Laughing when talking about painful events. There's a strange kind of laughter that doesn't come from joy. It comes from wounds stitched together with humor. You've seen it before. Someone talks about a heartbreak, a betrayal, a childhood memory that should have never happened, and they laugh. The timing is wrong, the expression is fragile, and the laughter feels like a mask barely holding back a storm. This isn't comedy, this is coping. People who laugh while describing painful events aren't trying to be funny. They're trying to make their trauma easier for others to hold. When emotions feel too heavy, laughter lightens the room. When memories feel too sharp, humor blunts the blade. When vulnerability feels dangerous, a joke becomes a shield. It's emotional armor shaped like a smile. Often, this habit forms in childhood, where expressing sadness or fear might have been punished, ignored, or mocked. So, they learned to package their pain in laughter, not because it healed them, but because it made the world a little safer. If they were suffering, they hid it behind a punchline. If their voice trembled, they covered it with a grin. Because somewhere along the way, they discovered that people listen more easily to jokes than to wounds. As adults, this habit turns into emotional deflection. Laughing during pain becomes a way of saying, please don't worry about me. Please don't see how much it still hurts. The laughter isn't happiness. It's a survival mechanism wrapped in misplaced humor. And when the smile fades, what remains is the truth they're afraid to speak. If I show you how deeply it hurt, you might see how fragile I really am. Number 8. Avoiding eye contact in casual talks. There's a unique kind of silence hidden inside the eyes of someone who avoids eye contact. It's not shyness, not disinterest, and not disrespect. It's the weight of being seen too deeply. For many people with emotional wounds, eye contact feels like exposure, like standing unmasked under a bright spotlight where every insecurity becomes visible. So they look down, look away, look anywhere but directly into another person's gaze. This habit is built over years of emotional caution. Maybe they grew up around criticism, where every look carried judgment. Maybe they lived in homes where eye contact meant confrontation, tension, or danger. Or maybe they simply learned that being seen meant being misunderstood, dismissed, or rejected. Whatever the reason, their eyes became guarded doors, only opened when safety was undeniable. Avoiding eye contact becomes a quiet form of emotional self-protection. Looking into someone's eyes demands presence, vulnerability, and trust, not things trauma easily allows. Eye contact feels too direct, too intimate, too raw. It's easier to glance at the floor than risk the possibility that someone might read their pain like an open book. And the irony? These same people often notice everything: body language, tone changes, invisible shifts in the room. They're observant to a fault because hypervigilance became their way of surviving unpredictable environments. So when they avoid eye contact, it's not because they're distant, it's because they're holding themselves together. Because sometimes meeting someone's eyes feels like letting the truth slip out, the truth that they've spent years learning how to control. Number 7. Keeping everything overly clean and organized. Some people clean not because they love tidiness, but because chaos terrifies them. The perfectly folded clothes, the spotless desk, the meticulously arranged shelves. They're not signs of preference. They're signs of control in a life where control was once impossible. When someone experiences emotional instability, uncertainty, or trauma, The world becomes unpredictable, but their room, their desk, their belongings, that they can control, and so they cling to it. Over-organization becomes a way to create safety. If everything is in the right place, then maybe their thoughts won't spiral. If the environment is flawless, maybe the storm inside won't feel so overwhelming. Their cleanliness isn't about hygiene. It's about holding their world together with order when their emotions feel like they're slipping through their fingers. For some, growing up in a chaotic household taught them that mess equals danger. Maybe arguments started when things were out of place. Maybe their environment was unpredictable, loud, unstable. So now, as adults, they keep everything pristine to avoid re-experiencing that emotional mess. Cleanliness becomes a shield against the past, a quiet reminder of control they never had. Others use cleaning as self-soothing, scrubbing, wiping, arranging. Each action becomes a ritual that numbs anxiety for a moment. When thoughts become too heavy, washing a dish becomes easier than confronting the memory behind it. To the outside world, they look disciplined, but inside, they're fighting chaos by creating tiny islands of perfection. Their neatly arranged spaces aren't just clean, they're emotional battlegrounds where order wins against the memories that once left them feeling powerless. Number 6. Smiling even when upset. There is a smile that doesn't reach the eyes, a soft, practiced curve of the lips designed not to express joy, but to hide pain. People who smile when they're hurting don't do it because they're happy. They do it because somewhere in their past, they learned that their sadness was inconvenient, their tears were too much, their emotions were dramatic, so they trained themselves to wear happiness like armor. This habit often begins in environments where expressing pain led to shame, punishment, or emotional dismissal. Maybe they were told to stop overreacting. Maybe their feelings were constantly minimized. Maybe they learned that showing sadness only made things worse. So the smile became their safe disguise, the mask that kept the world comfortable and themselves protected. Inside, though, the smile feels heavy. It's the weight of carrying emotions alone. It's the ache of wanting comfort but fearing vulnerability. It's the exhaustion of pretending everything is fine because they don't want to burden anyone. People who smile when upset often care deeply, too deeply. They don't want others to worry. They don't want to appear weak. They don't want to risk rejection for being too emotional. So their smile becomes a silent scream, "Please don't look too close. I'm trying to hold myself together." And the heartbreaking truth? They comfort others effortlessly, but rarely receive the same comfort in return. Because when someone hides their pain so well, the world forgets they're hurting. Their smile isn't joy, it's survival wrapped in politeness. Number 5. Hoarding small objects with no use. Some people collect tiny, useless items, ticket stubs, broken keychains, old receipts, empty perfume bottles. To others, these objects look meaningless. But to someone carrying emotional trauma, these items hold invisible stories. Hoarding small objects isn't about clutter, it's about memory, stability, and fear of loss. People who hoard sentimental but useless objects often grew up with emotional inconsistency, relationships that disappeared without warning, people they loved who walked away, moments that felt temporary. Keeping objects becomes a way to hold on to the pieces of life that didn't stay. If the people left, at least the items remain. If the memories faded, at least something physical survived. These objects become anchors, small reminders that something once mattered, that a moment once happened, that they weren't always alone. For others, hoarding emerges from scarcity. Maybe they grew up in poverty, or in a home where belongings were taken away, broken, or never replaced. Keeping everything, even useless scraps, becomes a subconscious attempt to prevent emptiness, because throwing something away feels like losing safety all over again. And sometimes these objects fill emotional gaps. A drawer full of random things becomes a buffer against loneliness, a physical reminder of experiences they're scared to forget. To the world, it looks messy. To them, it's a museum of survival. Every small object they keep carries a whisper from the past, "Don't let this go. You've already lost too much." Number 4. Constantly needing background noise. Silence is peaceful for some people, but for others, silence is terrifying. It's in the quiet moments that old memories creep back, unresolved emotions rise, and buried fears regain their voice. That's why some people always need background noise. Music, TV, podcasts, anything. Not for entertainment, but for escape. Constant background noise becomes emotional anesthesia. The sound keeps the mind from wandering into painful territory. Silence forces them to confront feelings they're not ready to face. Noise distracts them just enough to feel safe. This habit often develops in childhood homes where silence meant danger. Maybe arguments erupted out of nowhere. Maybe silence came before yelling, conflict, or emotional withdrawal. So now, as adults, silence feels like a warning, a storm waiting to break. Background noise becomes a way to drown out the echoes of an old life that still haunts them. Others use noise to quiet overthinking. Their minds don't rest. They race, analyze, replay, predict. Noise slows that internal chaos, giving them a sense of control. But the saddest truth? The noise they cling to isn't really sound. It's protection. It's comfort. It's the barrier between their heart and the memories waiting behind the quiet. They don't fear silence because it's empty. They fear silence because it's full of everything they've been trying not to feel. Number 3. Checking doors, locks obsessively. The repeated click of a lock, the constant tug on a door handle, the double, triple, sometimes quadruple checks before sleeping. To an outsider, it looks like overthinking or paranoia. But for someone shaped by emotional trauma, obsessive checking isn't irrational. It's rooted in experiences where safety was once stolen from them. People who repeatedly check locks aren't just making sure the door is closed. They're making sure the world can't hurt them again. Whether the danger was emotional or physical, their mind learned that security can vanish in an instant. So now, they try to control the one thing they can, the boundary between themselves and potential harm. This habit is also tied to hypervigilance, a survival response that forms in environments where unpredictability was the norm. Maybe they lived around people who felt like walking threats, unpredictable, explosive, unstable. Maybe they experienced betrayal, intrusion, or moments where their safety was compromised. Now, their brain stays on high alert, scanning for danger even when none exists. Checking the lock becomes a ritual that calms the fear. If I check one more time, maybe nothing bad will happen. But it never truly satisfies. The anxiety remains, whispering what ifs, because the checking isn't actually about locks. It's about trust. Trust in the world. Trust in others. Trust in themselves. Deep down, the lock they're really checking is the one on their own heart, hoping nothing painful slips in the way it once did. Number 2. Always sitting near exits in rooms. Some people instinctively choose seats near exits. At restaurants, classrooms, theaters, offices, they don't think about it consciously. Their body simply knows where the escape route is. This habit is one of the clearest signs of hidden emotional trauma, rooted in a deep need for safety and quick withdrawal. People with traumatic pasts often lived in environments where unpredictability shaped their behavior. They learned to anticipate danger, read tension, and plan escape routes without even realizing. Sitting near an exit gives them a sense of control. It's not about leaving. It's about knowing they can leave. This behavior is common in those who grew up in chaotic households, experienced emotional instability, or lived through moments where staying in a room felt like being trapped. For them, safety isn't found in comfort. It's found in options. The exit becomes their anchor. In public spaces, being far from the door can trigger discomfort, restlessness, or anxiety. Their mind constantly monitors the environment. Who's entering? Who's moving? Who's too close? They feel more at ease when nothing blocks their path. This instinct also reflects emotional boundaries. People who have been hurt often avoid situations where they can't distance themselves quickly. Sitting near the exit becomes a physical mirror of their internal world. Always prepared, always alert, always ready to retreat if the energy shifts. They don't sit near the door because they plan to run. They sit there because their trauma never fully stopped running. Number 1. Struggling to relax during silence. For many, silence feels peaceful, a soft, quiet breath the world finally takes. But for some, silence is the loudest place they know. It's in the stillness that suppressed thoughts rise, old fears echo, and unresolved emotions crawl back from the corners of memory. People who struggle to relax in silence aren't uncomfortable because it's quiet. They're uncomfortable because silence forces them to hear themselves. When someone grows up around chaos, noise becomes the norm. When they grow up around emotional instability, silence becomes suspicious. Silence often came before anger, before conflict, before disappointment. So now, as adults, silence feels like tension stretched thin, a moment waiting to snap. Others fear silence because it opens space for overthinking. Their mind floods instantly with questions, doubts, memories, fears. Noise distracts them. Silence exposes them. And emotional exposure is its own kind of terror. Relaxing becomes difficult because their nervous system never learned how. It stayed in survival mode for too long, running on alert even when nothing is wrong. Silence doesn't calm them, it activates them. So while the world sees rest, they feel vulnerability. While others feel peace, they feel danger. And while others enjoy the quiet, they brace for impact. They don't fear silence itself. They fear what silence reveals.